Well, good afternoon from Zion National Park, or just outside the park. It's a beautiful day out here, and I want to begin a series of conversations about optimism and about why I'm so optimistic and how guiding in Zion National Park has made me even more optimistic. What I see, what I'm learning, and what I can share to hopefully help you be more optimistic, because this is what I know. Optimistic people work for what they love. And it's way too late in the game, as somebody said not too long ago, for anything other than ardent optimism. So I told a story when I was guiding a trip in the park the other day, and it occurred to me that this is the place to start this conversation about optimism. That's a story of geology, because that's our most predominant feature here in Zion. It's the amazing geology. And so I'd like to give a tiny little geology lesson. And this actually is so funny because this is the first class I ever taught when I was 13 years old. I taught a geology class. The 4th through 6th graders learned, they were called rock hounds. My little class of 1st through 3rd graders were called pebble pups. So my first class was a pebble pups class. And the thing that I taught was that there are 3 kinds of rock. There's igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. And the difference between these kinds of rock are the igneous is the rock that comes out of the core of the earth. It may come out of a volcano, it may come out of a lava seep, or it may be granite that's an igneous rock that doesn't break through the surface but cools under the surface. So there are many kinds of igneous rock. And then there's sedimentary rock. In Zion we specialize in sedimentary rock. The huge, beautiful cliffs we have here, the Navajo sandstone, are actually petrified sand dunes. The sand blew into this area thousands of feet thick, millions of years ago, covered by a shallow sea, turned into rock. So right here in front of us, we have a beautiful example of sandstone, sedimentary rock. And then, when either one of those kinds of rock, igneous or sandstone, or sedimentary, gets put under enough heat and pressure, it turns into metamorphic rock. Here's a metamorphic rock right here. Metamorphic rock is flint, chert. There's a wide variety of metamorphic rock. And then I didn't even talk in those days about another kind of rock, which there's a lot of examples of here, because we are in the Chinle layer of Zion, and we've got a lot of petrified wood. So there's another kind of rock, wood, that the actual carbon got replaced by other minerals. So that's the story as I learned it, and as I told it up until last summer. And last summer I sat in on a ranger program, which I love to do. I love to hear how other people interpret the park and other people's ideas and learnings and knowledge. So I sat in on a ranger program where I kind of got my mind blown, because he was teaching not just the 3 kinds of rocks, but he was teaching what's actually true that I really didn't realize, and that is that it's a cycle. These rocks, they look very permanent right now. It looks like there are just 3 kinds of rocks, and that's the end of the story. But what's actually true is that the magma comes out of the core of the earth, comes up to the surface, becomes igneous rock, gets weathered, breaks down into little bits and pieces and particles and sand and little small chunks, blows around, piles up, gets put under pressure, turns into sedimentary rock, might wear down and become sedimentary rock 10, 15 times, and then eventually somehow that sedimentary rock ends up down, down, down in the earth and becomes changed under heat and pressure, becomes a metamorphic rock. And then, so that may cycle up to the surface, it may become a sedimentary rock again. Eventually, it disappears down into the melting pot at the center of the earth and gets cycled around again, comes back out again as igneous. So these rocks are a cycle, which was quite amazing, quite interesting for me. But here's the mind-blowing part. I've been thinking about this ever since because of what that means to me as a person. If these rocks are a cycle, and all the grains and sand of these rocks are cycling through, then what does that mean about me and my body and the cells in my body and what's left of me after I get done being alive and I get buried or burnt, whatever happens to this mass that is me, which doesn't disappear, goes somewhere. So it goes into the dirt, goes into the rocks. So I'm part of this geologic cycle. I'm really, truly a part of this geologic cycle. It just happens to be at this moment, the bits and pieces of geology that were igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic, or petrified wood, or crystals, that is right now my part of that geology is being carried around in this body. So it's kind of out here, it's kind of rocks and water. So I've got this crystalline rock body that's carrying water. I'm carrying, I'm 98% water. So my body that's part of this rock cycle is carrying around water. And that blows my mind to think about. And it helps me be so connected to what it means to be alive. Because without even touching on the idea of consciousness and the question of whether or not rocks are actually conscious, I happen to believe at this point, having thought this through and felt this through, that everything carries consciousness, but that's for another day. The point of the matter is that right at the moment, I am certainly carrying consciousness. And I am, at this moment, a small part of this amazing country. I just happen to be able to move around. I happen to be able to carry water. I happen to be able to move things from place to place. I happen to be able to make a difference in how life works and how the world is treated. And so some people, when I tell them this story, they say, oh my gosh, that makes me, well, actually, when I pause at the end of the rock cycle thing, they say, oh, I feel so insignificant. But then by the time I get done with this, well, what does that mean for us? It's like, sure, we're tiny, insignificant in that way, but we're the ones who are alive and moving around, and we are the representatives of these rocks that are able to move and make a difference at this moment. And to me, it is just so empowering I guess what makes it empowering is to realize the both-andness of it. I guess that, yes, life is very short, but I'm part of a very long cycle. And so if I just do my best, there's no possible way, no even ludicrously imaginary way to think that I could do it all or make a huge difference even. So if I just commit to being the best little sack of geology and bag of water, drop of water, the best little drop of water that I can be moving around in the world, and do my little part, it's the best I can do, and it's all life asks of me. And so I invite you to take this in and just see what it means for you. And what I'm going to tell you is that this is a delightful moment for me because I've been wanting to start a series of conversations about optimism. And I've had all the usual reasons not to. The biggest reason that sets me back is, where do I start? There's so many things that need to be said first. And so this moment is wonderful for me because I just finally said, well, I just got to start somewhere. And so that's the other thing we can do as these little sacks of water and rock. We can just start somewhere. It doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter how big you play. It just really matters that you just keep on being alive, feeling alive, loving what you love, and working for what you love. Stay as optimistic as you can. So thank you so much for being here with me and considering this way of viewing the world. I love you, and I'm so excited to be here with all the other little drops of water and sacks of sand that are moving around. It's part of this really wild, long view cycle that we are in. We're just the next moment of life's reaching for more life. We're part of that. So rock on, you, we're doing it. Thanks.